Hello, and welcome to today's lesson on inequalities, the number line, and interval notation. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. One quick change. All right, there we go, full screen mode. All right, class, here we go. So let's start off first with a few symbols that we're going to be using. So up here, all right, symbols. So some of the symbols that we're going to use are less than, or equal to, greater than or equal to. We're going to have a left parenthesis, a right parenthesis, a right brace, and a left brace. And we'll go through what that means as we work through problems. All right. So for example, number one, what we have is the inequality we have x is less than or equal to the number one. Okay, now this means three things. Okay. The first thing it means is that all numbers are less than or equal to one. That's what this x stands for. So this means all numbers run out of space. Means all numbers less than or equal to the number one. And we'll show that when we get to the number line portion. All right. Number two, this inequality means we're going to shade in all the numbers to the left of the number one on the number line. So shade all numbers left, all numbers to the left of the number one. And then number three, what this means is we're going to put a bracket at the number one on the number line to show that that number one is to be included. Okay, so number three means put a bracket at x equal to one to show that the number one is included. Okay, these are the words. You know me, I like to draw pictures. So here we go. All right, so what does it look like? Well, here's my number line. All right, here we are at zero, or really x equals zero. We'll just write zero, but we're talking about all these values that stands for x. So I got 0, 1, 2, 3, and on and on and on. I have -1, -2, -3. So what you want to do is this inequality x equals less than or equal to 1. At the number 1, we want to put this bracket, B-R-A-C-K-T. Okay. And now we want all the values of x that are less than 1. Well, less than or equal to. Well, we're putting the bracket to represent the equal sign, which is underneath here, to be equal to 1. So the bracket is there because of the equal sign, equal to 1, okay? And now we want everything that is less than 1. So 0 is less than 1, -1 is less than 1, -2 is less than 1, -3. So now we want to draw an arrow all the way to the left. Okay. So for the inequality, x is less than or equal to 1. We draw our number line. We go to the number 1. And since we have the equal to, we want to use the bracket because we need to include the number 1. Then we draw an arrow to the left to represent all of the values of x, like 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and so on, all the way to infinity. All those are values that are less than 1. Now, this is the graph representation. Now, in terms of writing this into what's called interval notation. What we're going to do is write it this way. We know we're going to start at the number 1. It's going to be comma. We're going all the way to -infinity. Now, the bracket that I use here is the same bracket that I'm going to use here. Because in our inequality, we had x less than or equal to. Because we had the equal to, we're going to use that square bracket. Now for the infinity, negative infinity part, we're going to use just the parenthesis. Because negative infinity is way out that way. It doesn't end, okay? So one quick review before we go to the next couple of problems. Let's go back. Inequality, x is less than or equal to 1. What it means is all the numbers less than or equal to 1. We drew a number line to represent all of our x values. If you think of this as an x-axis, okay. So x equals 0, x equals 1, x equals 2, okay. But anyway, we're going to shade all the numbers to the left of -1 because these are the values that make this equality true. 1 is less than or equal to 1. 0 is less than or equal to 1. -1 less than or equal to 1. -2 less than or equal to 1. -3 is less than or equal to, and so on and so on and so on. So now when we write this picture using interval notation, we're going to begin with 1 and then write comma, and we're going all the way to -infinity. I use my bracket. I said bracket. Use our bracket because of the greater equal to part of our symbol. And then it's going all the way to -infinity. I use my parenthesis. Okay, let's go to example 2. All right, so let's, oh, and please, if you need to go back, rewind this a little bit, watch it, help it to make sense to you. Please do so. Thank you very much. All right, so now let's, I'll keep the symbols up here, but erase everything else. Even all these words. All right. And now for example 2. Example 2. We have the inequality x is less than 5. So what this means is, this means all the numbers that are less than 5, but not equal to 5. As my phone goes off sometimes when I don't want it to. Okay, x less than 5. This means all the values, all the numbers that are less than 5, but not including 5. So that means when I draw my number line, start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -3. Okay, we're talking about all the values of x that are less than 5. So we want to shade in everything to the left of 5. And then we're going to use our parenthesis. All right, so let's first identify where's 5 on my number line. Here it is. Now, since this is just less than, I'm going to use my parenthesis. Parenthesis because it's just less than. Now I need all my x values that are less than 5, which is everything to the left of here. 4 is less than 5, 3 is less than 5, 2 is less than 5, 1 is less than 5, 0, -1, -2, -3. So we want to draw a dark line. Let's just draw it up here. And that's the graph for x less than 5. For our interval notation, okay, we're going to start at 5, and it's going all the way to -infinity. Now, because we had the parenthesis here at 5 here, we want to use parenthesis down here. And since we have -infinity, we're going to use a parenthesis for that. So this is the inequality. X is less than 5. This is the graph representation of it. On a number line, we use parenthesis because it's less than. And then we draw our arrow to the left to represent all the values for x that when I substitute them here, make this statement true, make this equality true. And lastly, in interval notation, we put 5, that's what we started with, and then comma, and I put -infinity because that's where this interval ends. And then since I use parenthesis, put parenthesis here, and for -infinity, I put parenthesis. Okay, but how about if we had a negative number? I'm glad you asked that question. That's a good question. All right, let's see how would things look if we had a negative number? Example number 3. All right, example 3. I have the inequality x is greater than -1. Let's draw our number line. And let's start, let's see, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we're starting at -1, which is here. We want all the x values that are going to be greater than -1. So it's going to be everything to the right. But first, because we have just the greater than symbol, we want to use the parenthesis at the point x equals -1. And now all the x values that would make this inequality true are 0, because 0 is greater than -1. 1 is greater than -1. 2 is greater than -1. 3 is greater than -1. So now I want to draw a line, a darkened line, all the way to the right. And that's the graphical representation of it, okay? Now, let's write the interval notation, okay? So we started at -1, and then comma, and it's all the values going to positive infinity. All right, infinity. Now, because I had the parenthesis here, I'm going to have parenthesis here for my interval notation. And then for infinity, it's going to be parenthesis also. Parenthesis would never be the square bracket, because infinity you never ever reach, you just keep going on. But I hope that makes sense. Let's go back for a second. Inequality, x greater than -1. When I graphed it, started at my point -1. Because it's greater than, I'm going to use parenthesis at the point x equals -1. I need all my values that are greater than x. But what values on this number line are going to be greater than -1? Well, 0, if I substitute this here, is greater than -1. 1 is greater than -1. 2 is greater than -1. 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we draw the line to represent all those values of x that make this inequality true. And then last, for the interval notation, sorry. Right, -1 is where we began, and we're going all the way to infinity. We're going to use the parenthesis because it was just greater than and not greater than or equal to. And then we write infinity, and then we write the parenthesis for that. So that's the interval notation for the inequality x is greater than -1. And we've got one more example, because someone may ask, well, what if you have a fraction? Another good question. Okay, let's see what will happen if you have a fraction. You know, basically it's going to be the same thing. Or decimal, tricky one because it's all the same thing. Example 4, I have the inequality x is greater than or equal to 1/2. Next, we want to draw our number line. And let's see, it's -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So 1/2 is between 0 and 1. So little mark here, and this is 1/2. All right, so our inequality says I need all the values of x that are going to be greater than or equal to 1/2. Well, since it says greater than or equal to, it's got that equal to meaning that little line right there. So I know I'm going to have that square bracket at the point x equals 1/2. Now I need all the other values on this number line that when I substitute them here will make this inequality true. Well, first of all, I'm going to have 1/2 because 1/2 is greater than or equal to. It satisfies the equal to part of it. So all the numbers to the right, because 1 is greater than 1/2, 2 is greater than 1/2, 3 is greater than 1/2, 4, 5, 6, all the way to infinity. And last, interval notation would be this. Start with 1/2, and then comma, and we're going to positive infinity. Now, because in our inequality, our symbol, we had greater than or equal to. Because we had that equal to, that's why we put the square bracket at x equals 1/2, put the square bracket here. And then for infinity, we use the right bracket. So that concludes our lesson today on inequalities, the number line, and interval notation. If anything didn't make sense, take your time, rewind the video back, take a look at things all over again, and keep practicing. If my explanation wasn't good enough, you may want to try another resource. You may try looking up on YouTube, inequalities, the number line, interval notation. But hope this makes sense. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, y'all. Take care.